Two red cars lay crumpled against the pit wall, chassis split like torn ligaments. The Monza garage reeked of burned rubber and panic. Akiko gripped the headset so hard her knuckles went white. Both drivers alive but broken. And the Italian Grand Prix was 18 hours away.
We have no reserve driver. The board is watching. If we don't field a car, the team is finished.
20 miles away, the rain fell softer on a small countryside house. Inside, a man with silver-streaked black hair trimmed a bonsai with unnerving calm. A car screeched to a halt. The team principal didn't knock. She fell to her knees on the wet stone, rain dripping from her gray hair.
Yoshihiro, please. Both drivers are out. The team has no one. You are the only name I can beg.
I retired 3 years ago, Akiko. My hands don't remember the wheel. Find someone else.
They don't need to remember. They just need to drive. You are the only one who knows Monza in the wet. The only one who can save us.
I saved you once. That was 17 years ago. I have nothing left for that world.
The door clicked shut. Akiko remained on her knees, rain soaking her coat. Inside, Yoshihiro leaned against the wall, fingers twitching for the first time in years, the muscle memory of a steering wheel. Night came and Yoshihiro did not sleep. The rain had stopped, but the quiet was worse. In the dark, a steering wheel waited behind his eyelids. Morning broke gray and damp. A second car arrived, a small, worn sedan. The woman who stepped out was not in red. She carried an old envelope.
Yoshihiro, I am sorry to come like this. I know you left racing, but my father believed you'd know when it wasn't truly over. He wrote this the night before his accident. I've kept it for 3 years. He said to give it to you when the team had nothing left.
The letter read, Yoshihiro, if you are reading this, I failed to say it in person. The team is not just a team. It's a promise I made to a young driver who needed a home. Finish what I started. Win in the rain. That is your gift.
He never told me that. All this time I thought I was just a driver. But he made a promise, and now the team is dying.
He always said the rain would call you back. Please, don't let his promise drown.
I need a moment.
Miyako left the photo on the table and stepped out. Yoshihiro stared at his younger face and the man who gave him a purpose. Then he opened a dusty closet. The vintage suit still fit. He packed his helmet, visor up, never closed until the last moment. Akiko's number glowed on his phone. He answered. He arrived at the Monza paddock like a ghost. Silence fell over the pit lane as Yoshihiro, in his vintage red suit, walked through the gate.
Yoshihiro, you came.
But the cameras swarmed with disbelief. A journalist's voice cut through. You haven't raced in 3 years. Are you risking your life for nostalgia?
So the grandfather finally shows up. I'll wave as I lap you.
You'll see me, closer than you think.
Don't listen to them. You are exactly what this team needs.
In the garage, he pulled the helmet over silver-streaked hair. The suit felt heavier than it used to, but the muscle memory didn't lie.
He said the rain would call me back. I hear it now.
He stepped toward the car for practice, the crowd still murmuring. Akiko watched him go, hope buried under anxiety. The grid awaited. A storm was building over Monza. Practice began under spitting rain. The car squirmed through parabolica. Yoshihiro's inputs were a fraction too slow, his muscle memory rusty.
The wheel feels heavier than I remember. But the corners haven't changed. They still whisper where the grip hides.
A snap of oversteer at Ascari. He caught it with a counterflick that made the engineers gasp. The car danced on the edge, but never fell. The timing screen flickered. P12, then P10. With minutes left in qualifying, he strung together one clean lap and jumped to 9th. Respectable, not remarkable. Then Ryu stole the show, a breathtaking pole lap that silenced the doubters. He climbed from the car with his fist raised, glancing toward the red garage.
9th, the old man's luck held. Tomorrow, the rain won't be so kind.
Back in the red garage, the atmosphere was stale. Mechanics avoided Yoshihiro's gaze. Akiko stood in a corner, phone pressed to her ear, her face tight.
They're not just disappointed in ninth. Something else is eating at them. Something they can't say.
He walked past the pit wall, close enough to hear a fragment. Vote tomorrow. If we don't get a result, Akiko noticed him and abruptly hung up. Race day grid. Cars lined up, wipers thrashing. Yoshihiro sat P9 visor open, staring at the black clouds. The board's secret, his mentor's promise, and the rain, all converging. The sky opened like a wound. Torrents hammered the grid, turning the track into a mirror of black water. Engines hummed in protest.
Spa, 1996. The rain was just as blind. The spray just as thick. My hands were younger then, but the memory is carved in bone.
27 years earlier, another monsoon had drowned a racetrack. A young driver with black hair had learned that rain was not an enemy, it was an equalizer.
My mentor's voice cut through the roar. In the rain, the real drivers show their soul. The water strips away pretense. That truth never fades.
The grid became a world of white noise. Wipers clawed at glass. Drivers glanced at the sky, then at their engineers, their knuckles pale on the wheel.
They're afraid. I can see it. For them, this is chaos. For me, it's a language I haven't spoken in years, but the tongue returns.
Race controls signaled a delay. The rain had exceeded safety limits. Cars stood steaming on the asphalt, the grandstands a sea of umbrellas and red flares. Yoshihiro's radio crackled. Akiko's voice, thin but steady, "They'll start it eventually. Don't let the waiting cool your focus."
Focus was never the problem. It's the weight of his promise, and the secret the team won't speak. But I have no room for doubt now.
A crack of thunder answered. The storm was not retreating. It was only taking a breath. Yoshihiro lowered his visor. The lights blinked out. 20 cars lunged into a wall of water. At turn 1, the world shattered, carbon fiber and spray exploding in a blind fury. Yoshihiro's world narrowed to a tightrope of asphalt. His hands moved before thought. A flick left, a breath of throttle, a missing apex that somehow existed.
The grip is there, outside the wet line, where the rubber hasn't polished the stone. The young ones don't look there.
Cars lay scattered like dead leaves. Half the grid limped or retired. The red car emerged from the mist, unscathed, already climbing. He carved through the midfield like a scalpel. P8, then P6. Each pass a lesson in forgotten geometry, lines no simulator taught.
The red car. It's already behind me. That old man came from ninth in this. Impossible.
Yoshihiro, you are P5. Gap to leader is 8 seconds. Stay consistent.
Consistent won't be enough. I felt their fear in turn 1. This race won't be won by points, it'll be won by nerve.
Lap 2 began under yellow flags. The safety car stayed away. Race control deemed the chaos manageable. The rain, however, was not, and from the cockpit of a red car, a 42-year-old heart beat with the rhythm of an old promise, pushing into the storm. Into the Lesmo corners he dove, braking 10 meters later than the data said possible. 2 more cars became shadows in his mirrors.
Spa taught me this. Where the asphalt darkens, the water pools thinner. The young ones fear the dark patches. I aim for them.
The grandstands stirred. Italian flags whipped in the downpour. A chant began. Low at first, a name they hadn't shouted in years. Ryu's race engineer crackled through his earpiece. The red car is now P3. His sector times are purple. He's coming.
Let him come. In this rain, experience only buys you so long. The car will break, or he will.
But Ryu's eyes flicked to his mirrors more often than before. The red speck refused to shrink.
Gap to Ryu is 7 seconds. Lap times equal. Keep pushing. Whatever happens, we believe.
Believe. But belief doesn't pay the board. There's a weight in her voice I can't yet name.
In the garage, engineers hunched over monitors. Akiko said nothing, but her knuckles were white on the headset. The same as when 2 cars lay wrecked. 8 laps in, and a 42-year-old from P9 was shadowing the pole sitter. The gap still 7 seconds, but the rhythm was changing. Lap 12. The The spray of the blue and yellow car loomed ahead, close enough to taste. Yoshihiro had swallowed the gap. Into Parabolica, they went side by side, neither yielding. Ryu squeezed the inside line, but Yoshihiro hung on the outside, tires howling.
He's insane. This grip won't hold.
They traded apexes for 3 corners. Ryu blocked, chopped, defended with fury, but each attack only delayed the inevitable. Over the radio, Akiko's voice returned. Strained, measured. Yoshihiro, listen closely. We need more than a podium today. Understand?
More than a podium. The board. She's not saying it, but that's what this is.
A text buzzed on Akiko's phone. Unseen by Yoshihiro. Board vote in 20 minutes. Outcome depends on race result. She clutched the headset.
Understood. No more waiting.
He pressed the throttle harder than he had in 3 years. The car squirmed, but his hands held it. The Red Bull chased the blue. Ryu's mirror filled with red. 20 minutes until the board sealed the team's fate, and the old lion refused to blink. Without warning, the sky fell in full. Rain hammered the circuit like gravel, visibility collapsing to 20 meters. Cars became wraiths in the spray. Ahead, 2 more cars pirouetted into the barriers. Yellow flags snapped, then red appeared on the timing board. Race control was considering a stoppage.
If they red flag it now, the result stands. I finish second, and the team dies. This storm is not an obstacle, it's a deadline. My mentor said, in the rain, the brave find traction where others see only water. I never understood the last part until now.
This is madness. They'll stop the race. I can barely see my own front wing.
Fear makes drivers lift. I felt it in turn 1. Ryu's voice is shaking. He won't risk what I will.
The red car edged closer to the blue, tires searching for the edge of adhesion. Yoshihiro's hands moved with a precision that had taken decades to hone. Ryu blocked the inside line into Ascari, forcing Yoshihiro wide. The old man lifted not in surrender, but to gather himself for a single final strike.
Akiko, tell the board to wait. I am not done.
The storm could stop the race at any moment. The board would vote. And Yoshihiro decided that if this was his last lap as a driver, he would enter it sideways. Into Parabolica, they braked. 2 cars, 1 line. Ryu hugged the inside, invincible, but Yoshihiro aimed for the impossible, a gap that didn't exist until he made it. Ryu's wheels locked, a twitch of survival. He had to lift or crash, and in that half second of surrender, the red car surged through. The grandstands erupted. Italian voices screamed a name buried for 17 years. Umbrellas jumped, red flares soaked but burning.
The pass is made, but the board hasn't voted. Victory is not a corner, it's the next 20 laps.
Yoshihiro, the board is voting now. If we don't win, it's over. P2 won't save us, please.
So that's the truth. Not just a race. A funeral, and I am the only one who can stop it.
The lead was tenuous. Half a second, not more. The storm clawed at the cars and the boardroom clock ticked in silence.
He passed me. In this rain, the old man didn't just survive. He's still hunting. I have to get back.
Hold it together, for him, for the team, for the promise.
The chase was not done. Ryu's mirrors held red, and the rain promised nothing but pain. 20 laps to decide a lifetime. Yoshihiro settled into a rhythm older than the cars he raced. His lines were not from a simulation, they were from a memory of Spa. From waterlogged apexes no one else remembered.
The secret of Spa. The river runs invisible. There's a dry line that shifts every lap. Follow the river, not the rubber.
The gap flickered on the timing screen. 0.8, 1.2, 1.8 seconds. Ryu, pushing desperately, found only deeper puddles and snap oversteer.
Where is he finding this grip? I've driven Monza 1,000 times. I don't recognize these lines.
Yoshihiro's hands worked the wheel with surgical precision. Every input was minimal, every correction anticipated. The car flowed where others fought.
2 seconds. Not safe yet. A spin or a safety car could erase everything. I need more.
Lap after lap. The red car stretched the gap, 2.5 seconds, then 3.0. Ryu's defense had broken. He was no longer racing the leader. He was racing his own fading confidence.
I said I'd lap him. Now I can't even see him. What does he know that I don't?
3 seconds ahead, with 15 laps remaining. The boardroom call was nearing its end. Akiko's voice stayed silent. She was watching numbers, not words. The chase was not over. Ryu's mirrors still held red, but the distance was becoming a gulf. The old lion had roared, and the young pretender was learning that experience is not just memory, it's instinct. The rain softened to a steady pour, still blinding, but no longer apocalyptic, and Yoshihiro felt his tires beginning to dissolve.
The wets are graining. If I push harder, they'll fall apart. I must nurse them, or the gap will vanish.
Akiko watched the board vote clock click to 5 minutes. She said nothing, but her lips moved in a silent plea. Ryu's radio crackled, gap down to 2.5. He's slowing. Push now. The young driver's eyes narrowed.
His tires are gone. I can smell it. This race isn't over.
Yoshihiro's inputs became gentler, nursing the rubber. He gave up 0.2 per corner to save the tires for later. The blue and yellow car grew in the red car's mirrors. 2.0 seconds, then 1.8. The gap was bleeding.
5 more minutes. Please, just hold on.
Lap 42 of 53. The lead shrank to 1.5 seconds. Ryu's fresher tires were a weapon. Yoshihiro's experience was a shield. The forecast promised no more rain, only a drying line that would favor the young. 10 laps to decide a promise 17 years old. The gap shrank to half a second. Ryu's tires bit into the drying asphalt. The red car's worn rubber squirmed for grip.
He's waiting for me to crack, but defending is death. I learned that in Spa, attack or lose.
Out of Ascari, he grabbed the throttle earlier than anyone dared. The rear stepped sideways, and he held it, rode the slide, and gained 0.2. The gap stabilized. 0.6 seconds. The red car was not defending. It was lunging out of every corner, stealing tenths that did not exist in the data.
He's attacking on worn tires. Into the wet patches, he'll throw it off. Nobody drives like this.
They fear the wet. They fear the edge. I've danced on it for decades. This is my language.
Ryu's rhythm fractured. He missed a breaking point by a meter, ran wide at Parabolica, lost half a second in a single mistake. The gap swelled. 1.2, 1.6, 1.9 seconds. The red car was not stopping. It was accelerating into the dying storm. Lap 50. The lead was 2.0 seconds with 3 to go. Ryu's shoulders slumped. His radio stayed silent. He had nothing left. The board vote clock ticked to 1 minute. Akiko didn't see the gap. She saw only a promise keeping itself alive. Lap 51. Ryu, floundering 2.0 seconds back, lunged at the inside of Ascari as if the corner owed him a debt. The wet patch was still there, and it bit. The rear snapped. Ryu's car pirouetted across the runoff, gravel chewing the floorboard. By the time he wrestled it straight, 2 cars had passed.
He's gone. Not just from my mirrors, from the race. The pressure broke him. Now it's just me and the clock.
The board vote window closed. Akiko's phone vibrated against the pit wall. She stared at the screen, unblinking. She pressed the headset tighter, voice steady but stripped of emotion. Yoshihiro, the board has voted. Just bring it home.
Just bring it home. No result, no relief. Either she's protecting me from pain, or she's holding in joy she can't yet share.
The red car flowed through the remaining corners, a metronome in the wet. 2 more cars retired behind him. The track was becoming a graveyard.
I could lift now, protect the engine, but lifting isn't why I came back. I came back to finish.
Lap 52. His gap was 22 seconds and growing. 11 cars had retired. The race belonged to no one else. In the garage, Akiko's knuckles were white around the phone. The screen held a single word. She didn't let herself read it twice. Not yet. Lap 53. The final circuit. Yoshihiro's mind drifted to an old photograph, a letter, and a rainy day in 1996. His fingers tightened. He would not just win, he would take the fastest lap.
Miyako, your father taught me that rain shows the soul. Here is mine. A promise kept. A team saved, or so I hope.
Parabolica unfurled for the last time. The checkered flag whipped across the spray. Yoshihiro crossed the line, 28 seconds ahead of a ghost grid. Inside the cockpit, he raised a hand, not a fist, just an open palm toward the sky, as if asking for an answer. In the garage, the crew erupted, but their joy hit a wall. Akiko stood frozen, phone screen glowing in the dim light. The single word on the screen was invisible to the cameras. Akiko's lips moved, but no sound came.
Akiko, I won. Did we do it?
She opened her mouth, then closed it. The headset crackled with static. The team waited. The world waited. The engineers exchanged glances. One reached for the radio, but Akiko's hand shot out, a sharp, trembling gesture that froze them all. The rain fell on Monza's empty circuit. And in the silence between the static, a promise hung by a thread. The phone screen flashed. Akiko read the word. Her knees buckled, and for the first time in 18 hours, the weight on her shoulders cracked.
Yoshihiro, the board. They saved the team. The condition was a win, and you won. You did it.
The team lives. I kept the promise.
As his car rolled into Parc Fermé, Yoshihiro pulled off his helmet. Rain and tears mixed on his cheeks, the silver streaks in his hair plastered to his skin. Akiko stumbled through the pit lane, not waiting. She threw her arms around him before the engine had died. You came back. You saved us. The crowd lifted their voices. A name, buried for a generation, shook the grandstands. Red flares ignited a sea of umbrellas. The crew flooded the Parc Fermé, hoisting Yoshihiro on their shoulders. Red smoke filled the air, and the old garage echoed with a joy that had almost died.
This win isn't mine alone. It's for Miyako, for my mentor, for the boy who needed a home.
Akiko stayed close, her hand on his shoulder, as if letting go would wake her from the dream. The team principal and the driver, a promise sealed in rain, and on the Monza podium, the clock had stopped ticking. The board's verdict was sealed, but the ceremony still awaited. On the cooling down lap, Ryu brought his car alongside the red. The crowd hushed, expecting a sneer. Instead, his hand lifted, open palm, a silent salute.
He's not just quick, he's something else. I said I'd lap him. He lapped me in a way I never saw coming.
The boy learns. He'll be a champion one day. But today, the lesson was mine to give.
In Parc Fermé, Ryu climbed out, water streaming from his buzzed hair. He walked straight toward the red car. No words, just a determined stride.
I owe you an apology. I thought age meant weakness. I was wrong. That was the best drive I have ever seen.
You will have your day. But today, an old promise was kept. A team was saved. That is enough for me.
Ryu extended his hand. Yoshihiro took it. The grip was firm, the kind that says more than words.
Next time, I will be ready. But I will not forget what he taught me about the rain.
The crowd, still chanting his name, now also applauded the young pretender. Something had shifted in the air, and as they walked toward the podium, the rain began to finally ease. The ceremony was next. The podium rose above the wet track, 3 figures climbing its steps. Rain fell softer now, as if giving its blessing. Akiko was summoned to the base, her red coat soaked, her eyes already glistening. The trophy gleamed under the gray sky. The Italian anthem swelled. Yoshihiro accepted the silver cup, its weight heavier than any trophy he had ever held.
This isn't mine. This is hers.
He placed the trophy into Akiko's trembling hands. She didn't reach for it. He pressed it into her grasp. She stared at the cup, then at him, unable to speak. Tears broke and mixed with rain on her cheeks. The crowd's roar swallowed the moment. Red flares ignited. Ryu, on the second step, watched with an expression no one had seen on him before. His jaunty arrogance was gone. In its place was the quiet humbling of a young warrior recognizing a legend. The team was saved. The promise was kept. The rain had washed away the doubt, leaving only this, and as champagne fogged the air, Yoshihiro allowed himself a faint smile, the first of a man who had finally come home. After the celebration, a small press room, Yoshihiro sat behind microphones, still in his racing suit, alone with the inevitable question.
I thank Akiko, Miyako, and my mentor. Without them, I would have stayed in my garden.
The reporter's pens froze. This was not a victor's speech. Silence fell, heavy with anticipation.
3 years ago, I retired with nothing left. Today, I had one more drive. That drive is over.
He paused, the faint smile returning. The smile of a man who had already decided.
I will retire again, for real this time. No comeback, no miracle, just a promise fulfilled.
A commotion erupted, questions flying. But Yoshihiro raised a hand and the room stilled.
I finished what I started. That is enough. Now, I can rest.
No dramatic exit. He stood, nodded, and walked toward the door, leaving the microphone live. The journalist sat stunned, and on the press table his racing helmet sat forgotten, the visor still up, rain droplets clinging to its surface. Yoshihiro walked out of the press room alone. The paddock had emptied, the grandstands were silent. The rain had stopped, leaving only reflections. He passed the pit wall where 17 years earlier he had stood as champion. Things had changed. So had he.
This is where it began, and where it ends. Not in a crash, but a quiet exhale.
He placed his helmet on the pit wall, visor up, the way he had worn it when hope was uncertain. The helmet sat like a sentinel. Rain droplets still clung to its surface. In them, the reflection of the Monza start-finish straight. He stepped back, looked one last time at the circuit. The storm had passed. The circuit was peaceful. He turned and walked toward the exit. Not quickly, not slowly. Just a man going home.
The promise is kept. The team is saved. I can return to my garden now and stay.
The paddock gates swung open. No one stopped him. His legacy was no longer a memory, it was a newly written page. And in the quiet, a single red helmet sat on the pit wall, keeping watch over a track that had finally given back what was owed. The rain was over. Days later, the countryside house was quiet. The rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds and touched the wet garden, drawing a faint rainbow. Yoshihiro sat on the porch, an old photograph resting in his hands. The silver streaks in his hair caught the light. The photograph showed a young driver and an older man, smiling in the sun of a forgotten year. A promise made, now a promise kept.
He would have smiled. Miyako's father. The rain truly did show my soul, and now the sun is showing my peace.
He rose and walked inside, to a simple shelf where a dusty helmet had once waited. Now it would wait no longer. He placed the racing helmet on the shelf next to the framed photograph. The visor still up as it always had been. Together, they stood as a memorial. The mentor, the student, the last race, and the first day of arrest earned. He took a deep breath, the kind that releases decades. And for the first time in years, his hands were still. Outside, the garden glistened. The bonsai he had tended for years stood quietly in the sun. Some stories end not with a crash, but with a quiet exhale. And somewhere, a promise bloomed like a lotus in the rain. Morning light touched the old photograph on the wooden table. 2 racers, one promise frozen in silver. The hand that had gripped a wheel in a monsoon now rested, still. Outside, the garden exhaled after the rain. A single drop fell from a leaf into a puddle, sending a small ripple. The shelf held its sentinels. A helmet, visor up, and a face from the past. No longer waiting, a faint rainbow bridged the sky over the cottage. A quiet covenant that even the strongest storms pass. Yoshihiro sat on the porch, not moving, not needing to. He had seen his promised land. The car was silent. The track was silent. The man was silent. And in the quiet, the photograph caught a ray of sun, and the faces in it seemed to smile anew. Some stories end not with a crash, but with a quiet exhale.